There is a hidden threat in many of our homes here in Michigan. It's a little-known element called radon. It can lead to some serious health risks. And yet, many of us are not aware of radon and the dangers that it poses. During a series of podcasts, we will uncover details about radon, how it gets into our homes, how we can test for it, and if necessary, how to protect ourselves from it. Here to help us learn all about radon is Les Smith, who is an indoor radon specialist from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. Les, good to have you here.
Good. Thank you, Jerry.
Well, let's start at the beginning and kind of elementary, but what is radon?
All right, thank you. Excellent question. It's most commonly asked. Radon is a naturally occurring radioactive gas. It's commonly found in the environment. It comes from the natural breakdown and decay of uranium rock in the soil. And uranium is made up part of our Earth's planets, part of the rock below us, and it's found everywhere. It is a radioactive gas, as well as the uranium that it comes from. It has its own progeny, radon decay products that also come from radon that can pose an issue for us. Outdoor radon is not an issue. It's at lower quantities and at lower levels. It comes from out of the soil and into the air, and it disperses readily. But in our indoor environments, in our homes, radon and its decay products can build up to levels that are unhealthy for us and can be damaging to our lung health.
I would imagine that radon may be stronger in certain parts of the soil than in other parts of the soil, or is it fairly uniform as far as exposure is concerned?
Sure. Again, it starts from that breakdown of uranium in the soil. So you could have higher deposits of uranium mixed in the soil than in the rock below a home. So you could have higher incidence of homes testing elevated, and we'll talk about that. But not always. A home sitting over a higher uranium deposit isn't necessarily going to have a higher level of radon in that home. But you can have high levels of uranium above a low uranium deposit. So, it's just a function of how much is coming out of the soil and what's happening with the air indoors.
How does it get into our homes?
Oh, it's a great question. It's a pressure difference, actually. The pressure difference between the soil below and the indoor air. And there's multiple ways for which radon can move from the soil into our homes. There's stack effect, and that's the heating of our homes causing air to be light and buoyant and want to move to higher levels and out of our home. It creates a negative vacuum in our home and causes airs to rise. That rising air is going out of the structure, out of a home in this case. It helps pull radon from the soil through cracks and openings in the home's foundation into the home. There's wind effects. The wind blowing over the top of a home can create a vacuum in the home and cause radon to be pulled from the soil into the home. And then there's just mechanical means. That's your clothing dryer, your exhaust vents, anything that's moving air from inside the structure to outdoors, creating a vacuum on the structure and can pull radon from the soil below. And in most cases, it's a combination of all three. So this helps keep just a little bit of a negative pressure on the indoor air pressure in the home, can cause radon to be pulled indoors.
Does it matter when your home was built or with what kind of construction materials?
No. I like to tell our callers to the Radon Hotline here in Michigan that radon is not a new home issue or an old home issue. It's an any home issue. All homes are in direct contact with the soil where the uranium and radium come from, and radon. All homes in direct contact with the soil will have some measurable level of radon indoors. And that's the homes that are loose and old and have lots of openings, the 100-year-old homes, as well as the 1-year-old homes that are nice and tight and weatherproofed. And all homes have some measurable level in it because of those factors I mentioned before. Is that pressure difference between the soil and the building. It's going to still bring radon in from the soil below.
I mean, my image of this is that if you have a basement, you're closer to the soil than if you're sitting on a slab. Is a basement pose more risks to a home than one that doesn't have a basement?
Well, not necessarily more risk, but you will find in a home that radon levels will be highest in the lowest area of the home in direct contact with the soil. So in the case of a home with a basement, the radon levels will be highest and that is a full basement or a walkout basement. All homes will have some measurable level. So you'll see a higher concentration of radon in that lowest level of the home. In this instance of a home sitting on a crawl space or a slab on grade, you will see the radon levels being the highest above that crawl space or on the slab on grade.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine, too, it would determine if you're at risk for any health problems, how much time you spend in a home.
Sure. There's many factors that could go into play with one's exposure. The radon is the leading cause of lung cancer for non-smokers. It is estimated in the United States that 21,000 deaths occur that are radon-related from radon-induced lung cancer. That said, everyone that is exposed to radon, and we all are, indoors and outdoors, everyone that is exposed to radon doesn't develop lung cancer. There's other factors that come into play. One of them is how long you've been in a structure that has elevated levels of radon in it. Another one is genetic predisposition to cancer. And then another one is, and an important one is if the occupants are smokers or have ever smoked in their lifetime, because that can have an impact on their risk for developing lung cancer over time. The risk associated with radon is a long-term risk, not a short-term. When we talk about other odorless, colorless gases like carbon monoxide, most people know that with carbon monoxide you can be harmed in a very short period of time, minutes to hours. With radon, you're talking about lifetime exposures that you may not know if you've never tested your home or have never had any health effects. You might not notice something until years later, 10, 15, 20 years later, and then you want to know, well, where did this come from? Radon does not cause any outward symptoms. There's no headache or fatigue or rashes. It doesn't cause nausea. And those are sometimes some of the questions I receive on our hotline. The only known risk with radon is the potential to develop lung cancer over time.
Mm-hmm. Before we go any further, we've talked about the levels of radon in your home. How do we know what the levels are in a home?
Thank you. That's a great question. With radon being an odorless, colorless, and tasteless gas, you're not aware of its presence in your home. So you can't smell it, you can't taste it. And you're like, oh, there's radon here. Well, it's there, but it's just you can't taste it. The only way to know is to test for radon in the home and find out what the radon levels are in the home. I'm with the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. We purchase radon test kits and we distribute them to our local health department partners around the state. Residents in the state can go to any of their local health departments in the state to pick up a radon test kit. There might be a charge at the health department. In some cases, some of the health departments do not charge. But the testing, in terms of dealing with something in the home, testing is one of the easiest things you can do. This is a sample of one of the test kits that we distribute to our health department partners. Very easy to use. What's in here is charcoal. And that charcoal is used to absorb the air and is used to absorb the radon atoms that are in the air with it. And it's decay products that go with it. The idea with these test kits is you want to, particularly with the ones that we distribute to our health department partners, is you want to hang these in the lowest livable area of your home. If the resident doesn't have a basement particular, or they live on a crawl space or they're a slab on grade, the recommendation is to place the test kit in a bedroom, a living room, or a den, someplace they spend a lot of time. In terms of in the basement, you want to place this in the center of the basement, preferably an area where if you spend a lot of time in your basement, say it's a rec room, place it there. Where the test kit should not be placed is laying on the floor on top of a sump cover, or placed in a laundry room, or placed on the floor of the crawl space. Those are not what we would call not normal practices. People don't live or sleep on top of their sump covers. They don't live or sleep in a crawl space. What we're trying to find out when a resident tests is what is the average concentration of radon in that space in the basement? What is the average radon in the livable spaces above that crawl space or on the slab on grade? Recommended closed house conditions for a short-term test. And what that means is you want to keep the windows and doors closed throughout the entire home. If you have vents into your crawl space, you may want to close them if you can. The idea is to minimize air changeover. If you bring in too much fresh air, then you're not getting a real sense of what the radon risk is in the home because the air is being diluted.
Might as well be outside, I guess.
Yes.
Sure.
So we recommend 2 to 4 days of testing. These kits can go up to 7 days, but most we recommend 2 to 4 days. We did talk about radon has a half-life. Radon gas and radon atoms have a half-life of 3.8 days. So it's important that when the testing is done, that test kit here is distributed, getting right to it's sealed, closed up, all the information put on it. It's important to know when the test was done and for how long the kit was exposed in the home. The time duration, what the humidity level was in the home, what the temperature was in the home. The laboratory needs that information so they can actually, when they receive the kit and they analyze the charcoal with the radon that's left in here, they can do some back calculations to figure out what the concentration was at the time that the testing was done. And then they give a report to the resident or the person who completed the kit, letting them know what the average concentration of radon was based on that 2 to 4 to 7 day test that they completed.
Are there times when you have to test for longer periods of time?
Yes. One of the things I have to do in my seat here is a little bit of myth busting. So radon testing is never a one and done. A lot of residents, if they do test, will test once. If it's under the action level of 4 picocuries per liter, they won't test again for years, if at all. What should happen is you should test, once the short-term test comes back under the action level, particularly if it's under 2 picocuries, retest every 2 to 5 years, just to make sure the radon levels are staying low, or unless there's some modification to the home, like adding an addition, changing the windows, making the home more energy efficient. If you change the air pattern in the home, changing that pressure difference between the building and the soil below in any way, you want to retest to make sure that the radon concentrations haven't changed.
At what level does radon become dangerous to your health?
There is a risk with radon at any level, but what the Environmental Protection Agency has stated for several years now is that 4 picocuries per liter of air is the recommended level for taking action to fix a home. If someone tests and finds out they have radon levels between, say, they're just under 4, they're in the 2 to 3 range, we would recommend that they do a longer-term test. A 90-day to a year-long test will give you a better understanding what the average concentration is of your home. If that radon test, the longer-term test, comes back over the course of that 90-day to a year-long test, and it shows radon levels are averaging at or above 4 picocuries per liter, it is highly recommended that the resident take steps to reduce their exposure, putting in a radon mitigation system, tightening up the foundation, and closing off the leaks and cracks and other things that could be causing areas where radon is being pulled into the home. Even if the long-term test shows radon levels are under the action level of 4, if it falls between 2 and 4, the Environmental Protection Agency highly suggests or that the resident consider putting in a radon mitigation system. So there's a difference there between 2 and 4 is consider fixing your home. At 4 or higher, it is highly recommended to fix your home.
But even if the numbers are below 4, they still can be dangerous to your health if you're exposed over long periods of time.
Yes, there are, even at radon levels under 4 picocuries, there is some risk. There is a lower risk, but not zero risk. There is some risk with radon exposure even at the lowest levels down to 1. So the important thing is to know what the radon levels are by testing and then staying on top of those tests, retesting and making sure that those radon levels don't creep up above the actionable level. If a resident were to test and find that their home was under 4, but it was still uncomfortable for them, I highly recommend it. Like if you can do it, go ahead and put in a system to reduce your radon exposure. You want to try to get, as we say, as low as reasonably achievable. So if there's a way to reduce it even further than what the radon level was detected, then to by all means try.
I mean, this suggests that if, for instance, someone, you have a finished basement and someone is living down there, spending much, if not most of their time down there, they may be more at risk than somebody that is in a higher level in the home, or not?
Yes, if someone's spending a lot of time in their basement, sleeping there, playing there, if that's their primary hangout space, they should find out what the radon level is, just so that they're aware, and then take steps to reduce their exposure.
I know.
They shouldn't have to leave their home, though. That's one of the questions that I get from residents. So, do I need to leave my home? No, you don't need to leave your home. Just take steps to reduce your exposure.
I know in many cases people have told me that when they're selling their home, they're maybe not required, but it's suggested that they do a radon test so that the incoming buyer will know what the risk level is in that home. Is there a law in Michigan or an ordinance in cities that demands that you test if you're selling your home?
Thank you. That's one of our big big topics here in our state. Presently, in the state of Michigan, we are not required to conduct radon testing during a real estate transaction or to mitigate the problem if once found. However, in the Real Estate Disclosure Act, there's a line that talks about environmental conditions in the home. To ask you about any knowledge of asbestos, any contamination on the property, and yes, it asks the question. One 5-letter little word buried in the middle of there is, are you aware of any radon issues in the home? Yes, is a radon a concern? If someone has never tested their home, they don't know that there's a radon concern in their home. What you see during a real estate transaction is if the purchaser is radon aware through conversations with the realtor or with their home inspector, they may conduct a radon test during that real estate transaction. And maybe to the surprise of the selling party, that might be the first time they become aware that the radon was an issue in the home at the time of the real estate transaction. In a real estate transaction, the inspector or another party will come in and place what we call a continuous radon monitor into the home, and the testing runs for 48 hours. And that device is actually taking a measurement every hour for the course of that 48 hours, and then it's going to generate a report that says the radon concentrations in this home over the 48-hour test were A, B, or C. It might be over the action level of 4 picocuries. It might be under. And then in that time, you have some decisions that have to be made about what happens during this buy-sell agreement. Is mitigation made part of the as part of the real estate transaction, which in most cases it can be done.
Yeah. I'm wondering, how does Michigan compare with other parts of the country in terms of radon? I mean, is radon at the same level radon occurs everywhere, or are there some states that are more prone to having it?
Again, with that, starting with the uranium and the rock below us, there are some areas of the country that have a higher incidence of radon potential than we do here in Michigan. We have areas of the state that tend to test higher than other areas of the state. Some areas of southern Michigan have more incidence of homes testing at or above the accident level than some areas along the shoreline or in the interior parts of the state. The western part of the UP tests different than the central and eastern part of the UP, for example. Bedrock and some other things come into play. In terms of how Michigan fits in with the rest of the country, we are not at any more higher or lower risk than other areas. Like I said, there are some other areas like Iowa tends to have run high. Parts of Pennsylvania, for example, tend to run high or more incidence of radon in homes than we do here in the state. On our webpage at michigan.gov/radon, we have a radon results map that is showing 10 years worth of radon data for the state of Michigan. And these are based on homeowner use test kits that are purchased through the county health departments or directly from the radon laboratory. And residents can actually go to that map and see what's happening in the area where they live or are potentially moving to based on the past 10 years of radon test results. That information is there to show residents that radon has been found in all areas of the state. All 83 counties have some measurable level. All 83 counties have had at least one radon test that exceeds the action level of 4 picocuries per liter. There are some areas of the state that are not, the testing isn't as frequent as some other areas of the state. And so we're trying to encourage testing in some of those areas where we were missing some data. But the point is, what we want residents to realize is that radon is an issue statewide, and that residents should not rely on the test result or lack of tests in their neighborhood or their adjacent neighbor. Each home tests different. Even when the whole neighborhood is testing, each home has a different test. And it's just a function of what's happening in the soil below. That's those air changeovers, how much air is being pulled out of the house, and homes construction as well.
Yeah. I mean, you have said that apparently we have higher radon levels here in the southern part of the state as opposed to some of the northern parts of the state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can look at just population density might suggest that because more of us are living and testing down here, we're getting more information from southern Michigan than we would, let's say, in the Keweenaw Peninsula in the UP.
Yes, there is more testing that is done in southern Michigan than in mid to northern lower Michigan. And when you get into the UP, there's more testing that's done in the western UP versus the central to eastern UP.
Oh.
So, and I think some of that's population density in the UP as well. Definitely in Michigan, there's more folks that live in the southern part of the state than in the northern lower. But that said, regardless of where people live, they really should test their homes.
Where do we stand in comparison to other parts of the United States? I mean, where does Michigan fit in out of the 50 states with radon levels?
We're not at the high end. That's
we're
definitely, but we're definitely not at the low end. I would say we're more like in the middle. And again, it's our average concentration, I believe, based on our partnership with our radon laboratory. We're averaging somewhere around 3.5 picocuries for all the tests that are done in the state. That is not as high as some of the other states. You might see higher numbers in some of the other states around us. So you may see that a little bit higher in Ohio and Indiana. You may see that a bit higher in Iowa. What we haven't talked about is what the glaciers did crisscrossing the state millions of years ago, grinding up rock and moving it and depositing material. And so you will see in some areas of the country that's a result of that, of the ground up material being moved and deposited. You'll see that in Iowa, and you'll see that in some other places. And that's not uncommon here with Michigan.
Well, of course, I mean, the glaciers carved out the Great Lakes, so that much we know about it, and it's had a great effect on the ultimate configuration of our landmass here in Michigan. We've talked exclusively, at least at this point, only about homes, but I'm thinking radon has to affect places like schools and factories and office buildings and daycare centers.
Yes.
Are those tested regularly or not?
We don't have much data on this. Most of the data we have is homeowner generated. We don't have the data for the schools and businesses. If the schools are testing, they're keeping that data to themselves. We do encourage the schools and businesses to test. Again, all structures that are in direct contact with the soil have some measurable level of radon in it. In terms of daycares, here in Michigan, now here's an interesting one for you. In Michigan, in-home child care is required to test for radon at the time of application and then again at renewal. So that's actually one of the few places that you'll see a requirement to test is for in-home daycare, and that happened back in 2019 when that requirement became effective. So we know our in-home daycares are required to test and then retest and then to take action to reduce their exposure for themselves and for the young ones that they are tending to. So,
when we mention that radon has a health risk, it suggests that perhaps our healthcare providers should have some interplay with us about some advice and checking us occasionally, I guess, for whatever the effects of radon may be. I mean, what role does the healthcare industry have to play in radon?
That's a great question. How healthcare industry in Michigan can help is asking the question. When we go to our physicians and our doctor's offices for checkups and follow-ups, we have intake forms that we're forced to sign and fill out and complete. And the doctor's offices want to know, are we smoking, wearing our seat belts, and do we have smoke detectors and that sort of thing. But the one question that is frequently not asked right after the do you smoke or have you smoked is, or have you tested your home for radon? So from a healthcare perspective, that conversation needs to continue and be added to the conversation on an intake so that our residents are making, at least if they haven't tested, they can think about, or at least receive some information on why they should test to protect their lung health. I mentioned that the risk for cancer is higher for someone who has smoked or ever smoked and in any concentration of radon in their home. The risk is much higher. So if someone is smoking, they have never tested their home for radon, could be at a greater risk than someone who has never smoked and has high radon in their home.
The test kits that we talked about and the ones that you showed us earlier, what does it cost to have one of these tests in your home? I mean, is it cost prohibitive or?
No, that's one of the lower cost items. The test kits through our county health departments can range anywhere between free and $10, depending on your county health department. During our Radon Action Month in January each year, some of our health department partners just give them away free of charge. Residents that are looking for a radon test kit should contact their health department office to find out if they have radon test kits available, and if they do, how much, what's the charge. In the case of the test kits that we distribute through our partners, the resident is only paying the cost, whatever the charge or the fee is that the county will charge. After that, it's just the resident's time of completing the test and mailing them. These kits here have postage paid on them already. So it's just completing the test, sealing up the kit properly, making sure all the documentation is on the test kit so that the lab can analyze the kit properly, and then getting it moving, getting it to the post office and getting it on its way to the laboratory. The only thing that the Environment Great Lakes Energy recommends is that when a resident uses an electronic monitor and determines that the monitor is showing radon levels at or above the accident level, we recommend that they follow up with a certified device such as a charcoal test kit, just to confirm the information that they're seeing on the electronic device. Many of the devices don't have the ability to be recalibrated, nor do we know how long do they stay calibrated over time. The devices are still relatively new, so we're still trying to figure out, how long before they're no longer effective. A carbon monoxide detector, as we know, in your home is only good for 10 years. We don't know what the life expectancy is of the radon monitors that are on the market today. So if someone has a question about what they're seeing on the device, we recommend that they follow up with a charcoal test kit. The electronic devices are meant to just sit in a room and just to analyze the air. Moving them around and trying to find the hot spot, and that's not what they're designed for. They're really designed to find out what the actual exposure is in the home over the course of a week, over the course of several months. And so it's best practice is just to leave it. Some of the devices actually take monitor or measurements, and residents will see spikes, which is not uncommon. Radon levels do rise and fall daily, and it's affected by changes in air pressure, changes in weather systems moving over the home or over the area. Both low and high pressure systems will have an impact on how much radon is in the home at any time. But it does cycle up and down daily, and it cycles up and down over the change of seasons.
We want to get more into testing in our next session,
Yes.
so we'll stop here for now. Les Smith, Michigan Department of Environment and Great Lakes and Energy, and we're going to talk more about testing and how you can go about it and get accurate results and what they mean to you in our next session. I hope you'll join us then.